Hi kiddos, and welcome to a quick introduction of the Navigator calculators, the Nspire calculators you'll be using in class. Every day you will be logging on to these, and we will be working on things like peer instruction and quizzes and entering answers for our inquiries and simply using them as calculators. These are the only calculators that I'm going to have available for you on the test. So if you don't want to use these calculators, which by the way, I love these calculators, if you don't want to use them, you'll be responsible for bringing your own because this is what I'll have available for you. And you will each be assigned a number for your calculator. So when you walk into class, you're going to go to the cart and you're going to get your numbered calculator. What that means is if you have not put away your numbered calculator, well, then there will be some lovely lab cleanup type consequences available for you. So let's go ahead and get a start. I'm just testing. I've got a new inking program I'm working on. Now, when you come to your calculator, this is going to be on the main screen. If it is not on the main screen, and if you are ever kind of stuck and lost in terms of manipulating, what you want to do is press the home key. Now, this is the bottom of the keypad here, and then this is the top. This is what you will be seeing as we work through the process. So if you're ever lost, go home. Now, not literally. I know many of you would like to go home instead of staying in class, but go home on the calculator. And also you have an escape key, which will also move you backwards steps. So both of those keys are very, very handy. Now, another key that we'll be using extensively is the document drop-down box. When you press the document drop-down box, let me shift this here. When you press that document drop-down or this My Documents, you're going to see a bunch of documents. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on. All right, so I want to go back home and let's take a look at another keystroke that you are going to want, or another key that you're going to want to track, and that's your menu. No matter where you are, whether you're in calculator mode or document mode or graphing mode, that menu is going to be a handy key. And it will bring up a different menu option box depending on what you're in. If you're in calculator mode, you're going to get a different menu box than you will if you're in document mode. So that's what the menu box will do. So you want to make sure you pay close attention to that. Tab we will talk about later. Now this is a critical one. That's going to get you to your calculator scratch pad. And again, I'm going to come back to that in just a little while. Well, let me go ahead and do that. So that would press your calculator. That gets you to what's called the scratch pad. So if you entered numbers on your calculator, that's going to show up at the top and you would just hit enter. Now this has also got your graphing component of it. So this shows graphs, this shows calculators. All right, now I want to get out of that, so I'm going to go home. Now you can also get to that by pressing the calculate option up at the top. So you have a calculator button here by your central control pad, but also on the main home screen you can choose to calculate or to graph, and you'll come up with the same two tabs. So I want to go home. Remember, whenever you're lost, go home. All right, and that gives you a few of the main keys up here. If you take a look at this center key here, right, make it really, really big there. I'm going to circle that. That actually, you can hover over that, and it takes, there's a little bit of a delay, but you'll often get a little bit of a mouse cursor if you want to use that. I don't find that to be the most user-friendly, and so when we get to documents, I'll show you how we're going to tab around those documents instead of using that. Now, if you look, whenever you see a blue on here, so I want to clear this screen here. Whenever you see a blue on here, what you've got is the control options. So if it's control, It's hard to see. I know that if you've got the calculator in front of you, it'll be a little easier. You see a little hand grabbing onto something, and that will be useful for some of the activities that we'll be doing. Now, one of the most important keys that you will be using for calculations is your exponent key. One of the things I like about the Nspire as opposed to your typical TI-84, and I know you're familiar with that, and I know that change is difficult, but I promise you will become used to these. One of the things I like about it is it's not a second function. It's a direct click, and you're going to get your exponent. So let me go to calculator. If we go to the calculator mode and I want to put in 6.2, instead of hitting an exponent, a second function, I can just hit EE. So that would be e to the minus 3. And then I could hit enter, and you notice that changes 0.0023 to scientific notation. Those of you who are watching this from pre-AP chemistry, you may not quite understand that yet, but you will by the second unit of class, and I'll cover that again. That was a little bit more for the AP students. All right, now what we want to do is we want to go home, and I want to talk about just a few settings that I want you to set up on your calculator to start with. So from the home page, so we're on the home page right here, I want you to be pressing settings. So that's going to set up our calculator, and it's going to provide how we log in. So when you come into the class, you're going to hit 5, and you can use it with the cursor if you want, or you can just hit the numbers. So if you hit 5, you're going to get into your username and your password. So when we move down here, this is where you've got your alpha keypad, and you'll put in your username that I'll assign to you and a password that I'll assign to you. Now, for now, I'll just put in some letters like that, and then we have some other letters like that. Now, I'm not connected to any calculator, so it's not going to let me do anything. But it will allow you to log in, and it will allow me to check that you've logged in. So that's how we log in, is 55, and enter your user and your username and your password. We'll do some troubleshooting in class in case there are times when you are not connected to the network. I'll do that separately and individually. Now, also under settings that you'll want to do typically right away is go to settings and go to login. Cancel. Settings and to 2 and 1. So if we do 5, 2, 1, this is going to set up your calculator in the appropriate mode. You want to display quite a few digits. I would prefer you to float. That means the number of decimal places, at least 4. And we can round out appropriately later. Then go to exponential format. You can do normal, scientific, or engineering. We will not be ever using engineering. Engineers will use it. It's it's just a different twist on scientific notation. Normal will be just decimal places. So your normal decimal point type of numbers. Pre-AP, you may not be quite familiar with scientific notation. We'll be again using it extensively. You will typically want this set for scientific notation. Now, one thing that you really want to know where it is this calculation mode. These calculators, this process, the programs were designed primarily by mathematicians, and what can happen on a frequent basis is you end up with the calculation staying in a fraction mode, and we don't want that. We want it in a decimal point mode. So you want to set that to approximate. Now, there's another way to approximate numbers. Let me go ahead and make that my default. So go ahead and set that, make that your default, and click OK. Now, there is another way that if you're in the calculator mode, so I need my mouse, sorry about that. Go to calculate. All right, so if you end up with a number that is stuck in this decimal notation, as opposed to putting it in that fraction notation as opposed to putting it in decimal notation. What you can do if it's not set right is if you hit Control Enter. Do you see that little approximate sign above the enter? That will get your number out of this fraction form as well. So if you don't want to go back home and fix your settings, if you just hit Control Enter, that will take this fraction that mathematicians may like and put it into a decimal form that scientists typically like. Now, one last thing that I want to show you. Let's go back home. And I want to show you how we will get into documents. So I'll have documents made for you. I don't have anything planned right now for you to make documents, but I will have documents made for you. And you go to My Documents. So you can press the number 2. You don't have to click the key on the top. You don't have to get the mouse to do it. You can do it numerically. So you'll go down. Now, typically in here, what you're going to see are classes. So in here above these folders, instead of saying empty folders, it'll say period 2, period 3, period 4, and so forth. Make sure you select your correct period so that you don't work in somebody else's. I try to erase documents and other periods as I collect them, but sometimes that doesn't happen. So always, always, always make sure that you check your period. Okay, check that you're in the right period number on that. All right, then what you'll do is you'll double click on the document that you want. Obviously, this happens to be one where I was testing you on polyatomic ions, and you know the answer to this one, I hope. So you would plug in, and I'm not real picky about caps on this. You can if you want. I usually allow flexibility. Just, whoops, I don't want that. Go to the delete. I want my student response in here. And you would type in P. Let's put that caps back on. So let's delete that. So we'd put P. I guess you have to hit it every time. So now we've learned. So let's delete P O. That's why, see, it's kind of tedious. I also don't make you type in superscripts and subscripts on this, just to keep things simple. So it's phosphate, PO4, and then it's got a charge of 3 negative. So that's typically how I would allow you to enter that number. Make sure you hit the negative sign. Well, I hit it twice, but make sure you hit that instead of the subtract sign. So we'll use that for change signs. And don't worry, because I have the ability to go in and accept more than one type of answer on these. So this gives you a brief introduction to the main things that we're going to be doing. So until I see you in class, or if we are doing this in class, call me over and I will help you out. So until then, this is your best chemistry teacher. So that's how I usually sign off on mine. So I'll go ahead and sign off. Say YBCT, your best or your beloved chemistry teacher. Talk to you later.